When it came time to leave, I had graduated and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And going into the work world seemed kind of frightening to me, and I still had a lot of energy and angst, and I wanted to do something spectacular, really, at the end of the day. And I looked into a lot of different things that I could do in the military. I had always been interested in the military, and I finally decided on SEAL teams for one reason, and that's where the best was. So the initial training to become a SEAL is called BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition and SEAL Training. That's the acronym for it. And from the first moment that you show up at BUDS, you begin to understand right away when you get there that training, practicing is basically what this entire community is about. Like I said, from the moment that you get into training, from the first day you start until the day you leave, your entire time is spent practicing. In BUDS, right away when you first get there, the first day that you're there, what the instructors are going to start to tell you is baby steps. Baby steps is all about practicing. And what they mean by baby steps is incremental improvement. Overall, in your entire time in BUDS, the most important thing that you have got to do is to improve. The only way that you can improve and show that you can be an operator in the SEAL teams is in order to show them that you can actually practice and that you can actually take that practice, put it into action, and actually improve over the long run to learn. So a SEAL operation, a real-world operation, is an extremely robust, chaotic, exciting, dangerous, scary event. And anytime you're going to go on one of these, the only way that I was able to feel where I was comfortable stepping onto that helo and taking off on these was we used to talk about all the time relying on our training, relying on the practice that we had, that at the end of the day, when it gets all chaotic, that when it does come time to think and you have to make a decision, hopefully you've tried to make that decision in training. But even if you haven't made that decision in training, you've done all of the other things that you don't have to think about, and it's muscle memory. So all of the way in which you carry your weapon, the way in which you shoot, the way in which you acquire targets, the way in which you move through compounds, the way in which you fast rope out of the helo, all of that stuff is such muscle memory that it frees your mind up to be able to actually make those critical decisions at the key times during an operation where if you make the wrong decision, it can go very, very badly and people can die. What you want to be able to do is have that space in your mind where you can actually make those decisions in a rational way and in a calm way, because everything else that's going on, you've trained so many times. So you've been practicing in places where loud gunshots are going off constantly, hour after hour, and you practice making those types of decisions that you need to make to keep your teammates and yourself alive. You also have to make sure that the most important thing that you do is to practice correctly through that. And so when you step onto the helo, you can look back at all of those months and years that you spent, the hundreds of thousands of rounds on the range that you shot, and you know that you're not going to have a problem with actually pulling the trigger and actually shooting should you actually make the decision to do it. It frees your mind up to be able to make critical decisions at the right time so that everything else can happen how it's supposed to happen. So for me, the notion of a process to practice things that we took from the SEAL teams, I think can apply anywhere in business. Specifically, it can apply to somebody who's an accountant that's working through numbers, that continually has to practice the same processes in order to get the same reports out. It can be in sales, where anybody who's talking to somebody or doing outbound sales calls or inbound sales as well, making sure that their practice and they have rehearsed what happens when somebody calls and has a problem with a certain aspect of the product you're selling. How many times does it take to be able to go through that? If you haven't practiced, you're going to fumble through it. When you actually practice those things, that you already know what you're going to say, so you can listen to what they're saying as opposed to listening to what they're saying and trying to think of the response as you're doing it. you already know what your response is going to be, so you can think more about the actual conversation. You can think on how you can add value to your customers or to your clients that way.